It was immediately after World War II in Reggio Emilia, Italy, that schools of early childhood began, from a group of parents, citizens, educators, and a middle school teacher named Loris Malaguzzi. They were ready to create a new and innovative approach to educate young children. Their work grew into a philosophy based on the competency and capability of all children, a philosophy based on children being respected and supported by their teachers and by the entire community for their thinking, their ideas, and imagination. Educators around the world began to visit the Reggio schools in Italy and, in turn, shared the philosophy with their colleagues at home. Today, the Reggio Emilia approach is widely recognized as a unique and innovative approach to educating young children.
I arrived in Italy in March of 1982. It was an experience of a lifetime. I saw children shining and talking about things, drawing pictures, writing stories, telling stories, building blocks, outside doing things in very appropriate ways. It wasn't like pushing children ahead, but it was supporting children to go deep into their explorations.
When one thinks about the Reggio Emilia approach, it is a Reggio Emilia approach is because it is from the city of Reggio Emilia, but it's not, we wanted to give it a name, and so the word approach was much better than philosophy. It certainly is not a method, but because it is open. So we created this name. How could you maintain the height of that interest? How could you really also keep connection? I think that most important thing is to maintain the shared interest, cultivating it.
The Reggio approach is absolutely right for New Mexico because we're so rich in different kinds of children, different kinds of families, different kinds of communities, and we can take advantage of all of these different styles that are around us and cultures that are around us and learn from each other.
In 1997, Santa Fe, New Mexico hosted the 100 Languages of Children traveling exhibit, illustrating the innovative Reggio Emilia approach.
I see that exhibit from '97 as having planted seeds that are now growing, and some are little sprouts, and some are bushes, and some are growing into trees.
This is the way I've been wanting to teach, and I just didn't have a name for it, you know, and I love that it just allows you to really teach based off of the child's interests. So instead of telling the kids what we'd like them to learn, it's sort of like we pull it out of what they're doing, and I feel like it really allows the children to grow and learn in a very natural way. One day the children came in and were wondering why Miss Sarah was absent. So I let them know that her pipes had froze, and immediately it sparked an interest in how pipes worked and what she was going to do to fix them and how they could fix pipes and figure out how they worked.
So what do you think happens when you push this?
There's water.
Where does the water come from?
Here, the pipe. There.
Where do the pipes get the water from? Right here, the pipe ends at the wall. Do you think it ends there, or where does it go?
Wait, no, it ends. It goes underground and it ends at the mountain. Teacher.
Which mountain?
Wait, no, it ends at a waterfall.
I'm really very passionate about this. The Reggio Emilia idea, the philosophy. It's a wonderful thing to give our deaf and hard of hearing children. It works for all children worldwide, of course. but especially for deaf children and students who come here to our school who have almost no language or very limited experience with language. They may have limited access and communication at home, so coming to an environment where they're able to learn naturally and investigate and explore things, the students become the guide and the leader within their own education. We see huge impact on our children, and we see there's proof that it works for children in general, but, like I said, for deaf children and for second language learners really. It's amazing to watch how the kids interact, communicate, and the choice of words that we see them use. They're becoming more sophisticated, and I really enjoy seeing that in them.
When they're living here in the city, they hardly talk in Navajo. So when they're here, I try to talk to them in Navajo and try to let them learn their own Native American language, Even the other kids, they were like, what are you saying? Are you talking in Spanish? I says, no, I'm not Spanish. I'm Navajo. I talk in my own language. They will say, how do you say this? And then I start teaching them. If they want to learn, I'll teach them.
With the teachers here, it's given me the opportunity to say, what do you know first? What do you know? What do you imagine? What can we think about? What are some ways we could learn more about it? What are some resources that are out there so that we can figure out what's going on? And I feel like that gives him so much more space for his style of learning, for his imagination, for his joy in it too.
The principles of Reggio Emilia are very important, and the Reggio educators don't like the word model. If they don't want people to use them as a model. That what they say is learn from our questions, learn from our principles, and you have to come up with your own answers.
I realized that with the Reggio Emilia approach, any kind of student or kid can grow. They're their own individuals. We have high-functioning, intelligent kids along the spectrum to students who do struggle, but everyone has potential in the Reggio Emilia approach.
In Pueblo communities, we believe that children, they are born with gifts that have to be actualized. So it's our responsibility as their caretakers to actualize that in certain ways that we interact with children. And we may not know immediately what that gift is, but through our actual working with children, that it'll eventually emerge. It's a communal effort, and everybody's working together to ensure that these children are given the best possible learning opportunities that they can.
If you don't have a strong image of the child, you're going to miss out on everything that they're capable of doing. All of their uniqueness, all of their individual personalities. And it's also important too because you learn how to grow as a teacher and as a person. You start feeding off your own ideas. You become more aware of your practices and how you're influencing the children and how their influence is influencing your influence towards them. So that's what I've enjoyed the most, is just taking the time out to step back and really see these aha moments that these kids are having.
Children are whole people who construct their own knowledge, and we have a profound respect for that process.
The interests of the children are observed every day in the classroom. I believe what happens when it's decided what the teacher and the child are going to study together is there's a spark between the two. It's not only what the teacher is seeing as an interest of the child, and that might be because it's the child's doing it over and over again. They're exciting other children. There's a high level of motivation for whatever this interest is, and but the teacher also has the same spark. So I see it as an attraction. At that point, everybody's motivated, and the children kind of are the leaders in that way.
You can use what the children are interested in to help them learn. For example, this year, in Taos in the fall, a bunch of tarantulas come out, okay? And we continued to find tarantulas on the playground. And I nicely scooped them up into a bucket, and then I would take them back out onto the mesa and just let them go. But the children were always, well, I want to see it, I want to see it. What color is it? Where is its eyes? And so, as afraid of spiders as I am, I decided to put a tarantula into my classroom. And I used that tarantula as a way for children to explore the environment and to imagine and to create different projects. And the tarantula lived with us for 2 weeks. We learned so much about tarantulas and why they were migrating and where they live, and it spun into more ideas about different spiders. I was learning with the children, alongside the children, and I think that that's what's so beautiful about the Reggio approach, is that I'm not standing back and pushing information into them. I'm side by side with them learning. So I feel like that's the way that the environment can act as a third teacher.
I really like the idea that we're being very thoughtful in our work with children, that we're looking carefully at children to see what it is that they're interested in and what they want to do, and that we're picking activities and curricular ideas that match those things. You really do what kids are interested in, not what you think they might be interested in. To me, it's just such a more respectful way to be with children.
The Reggio process of documentation is pedagogical. It really are looking at how children think, how they see things, how they're feeling. We use this information then to facilitate the development of the curriculum and projects. And then another way of doing documentation is to look at assessment, to see children's growth and development.
So when you put my hands and your hands together, we have 20 fingers.
As a state-funded pre-K, that is a big focus for us. So we work on balancing the two. Now, when you look at Andronette's classroom project of the pizza shop, we can look at an authentic situation of play, and at the same time, we can then pull out the learning that is occurring. So for example, you'll see a child who is taking an order, and so the child is writing, and so they'll have that literacy experience. They might also have the literacy experience of writing a menu, and for those children who are ready, there might be sounding out words. There might be pricing. They might need to put how much the pizza costs. And we have an understanding of counting and money in that process. We also have sequencing because we need to make the pizza. What happens first, second, third?
And pineapple? Can you show me where the pineapple is? Those ones? And what are these? The pepperonis.
And then on the pedagogical side, we see what they know about a pizza shop. We know about what they're thinking by what they're doing and saying during their play, and we can then analyze what is the next step for them in that play. Where does the teacher want to take the child? So we see how we want to challenge their learning, but we also want to see how we want to challenge their play.
Pay with your credit card.
With my credit card. I need my credit card.
Be sharp while you put that.
Thank you.
We had a parent come in who was a potter, and she worked with the kids to go out and find clay, and then the students brought it back to the school and they added water and they put it through a sieve, and they ended up making clay, and then they made clay pots for their moms for Mother's Day. It was nice working with a parent who had an area of expertise, and so they could come in and work, and it was a student's mom, so it was working with community as well.
One of the ways that we involve the parents is through the documentation, that it's very important that they are taking pictures and writing notes during the school day if they're the parent that's involved that school day. And every time they make the choice to take a picture or to write a note down, they're having to be present in the moment in a different way than if they're just there with the kids. They have to be making that choice.
The biggest thing that I think we can carry on with us throughout whatever phase of the education for my children is them generating their own knowledge, them learning how to think, and that's really what brought us to this school too.
Feliz cumpleaños a
Feliz cumpleaños a ti. By following a child's interest, it really lets them shine through their learning. And they're still able to incorporate different learning aspects like writing and reading and counting, and their vocabulary expands because it's really about something that they love. It opened up their soul and it gave life to their work, and it really showed that by us appreciating what they were interested in, that they could grow because they knew that they could, and they were given that experience and that opportunity.
We have a diverse culture here, so we understand, their culture of the family. We respect anybody's culture, my culture. Now that this year I have a little girl who's Navajo. So that's kind of interesting in our classroom because I can talk here and there my language to her and she'll understand. And we try to incorporate our other teachers into it too, So it's a teaching method. I think the biggest thing is about building relationships with these kids too, It's not your culture, it's our culture. It's everybody's culture. It's one big center, it's one big family.
Stepping into this position as co-lead, I found that it was really quite comfortable because we all have different teaching styles, but we all get along great together.
One of the misconceptions about Reggio Emilia is that we just follow children's lead, but there is an awful lot of planning that goes on in studying children's interests. And part of that planning is also an opportunity for teachers to professionally develop themselves in their study of children. So we have what are called collaborative planning meetings, and the teachers come together once a week for about an hour or two to talk about what's happening in the classroom. We use something that's called a reflective planning cycle, where teachers first observe children in the classroom and they document what they may see children interested in, and then they bring that documentation to the collaborative planning meeting where we look at it as a group. And we talk about what we see children doing and saying and think about things that we could plan based upon what we see in the documentation. And then teachers make a plan and they take that plan back into the classroom, and then the cycle continues. A collaborative team meeting consists of teachers from different classrooms and also a facilitator, someone who comes to the meeting to has the purpose of asking teachers questions about the documentation and to help push teachers forward into thinking deeper about the work that's going on in their classroom and also about themselves as teachers.
Because my mom was Chinese, I was raised with a lot of Chinese traditions, and I wanted to share that with Caitlin's classroom. I had made a big pot of Chinese fried rice. It was the year of the snake. And so we made paper chain snakes and red paper envelopes to put money in that you would feed to a Chinese lion dance for good luck.
And then a couple days later, Caitlin came into the classroom and they had gone to a Chinese restaurant where she got to experience Chinese dancers in a Chinese New Year celebration. And she had seen some of the Chinese lion dancers, and so she came to school the next morning really excited and shared about that with the other kids. After I had that documentation, I had quotes of what the kids were saying, different things they noticed when they were watching the video, the things Caitlin was sharing about what she saw at the restaurant. I came back and brought that to one of the meetings with the teachers, and we all discussed what we noticed and where we thought we could take it next. Getting to document what the kids were doing and reflect it back to them really helps me see what the kids are doing, and I'm really able to see the amazing process that the kids are going through. It makes my work much more fulfilling to me and really helps me see what the kids are capable of doing.
This is referred to as teachers developing a faith in themselves and in their own work with children. So studying documentation is really an opportunity for teachers to learn about children from children.
¿Qué color es este? Anaranjado. Amarillo.
There are hundreds of ways that children express themselves, not just in the languages that we traditionally think of, written language, spoken language, listening, talking, reading, writing. I mean, those are languages and important languages. However, there are hundreds of languages of expression that children use to communicate, to think, to question, to wonder, to imagine, to figure things out. So the Reggio educators, by using this metaphor, the 100 languages of children, it encourages us to recognize and value and build programs that strengthen all the languages of children.
Their face with a smile says 1,000 words for me. To see them motivated to learn, to grow, that is what gives me joy.
It's a lot like growing a garden. It's like if you give them the right environment, the right nourishment and attention and affection and belief, then they sprout and they grow into these really beautiful beings.
You know, how will children ever learn to use things and to take care of things if you don't ever let them even try to use those things? And which is their basis for giving them a lot of natural materials, giving them glass in the classroom, exposing them to glass jars and things that are just more beautiful and usually more adult oriented. So letting them use actual tools like screwdrivers and hammers and letting them have those experiences to really grow because you trust that that child is capable and competent to use those materials.
Another phrase that comes from the Reggio School is nothing without joy. So learning is seen as joyful, a joyful experience for children and teachers and families, and for us all to join in the joy and the wonder of learning that children naturally have, and that we all naturally have when we get back to our essential nature.
If you'll help me to ask my own questions, try out my own ideas, explore what's around me, share what I find. If I have plenty of time for my special pace, a nurturing space, things to transform, if you'll be my patient friend, trusted guide, fellow investigator, then I will explore the world, discover my voice, and tell you what I know in the 100 languages of children.